How the troops work in Clash of Clans, their AI, can be confusing, but I am going to simplify everything in this video. Welcome back to the channel then, guys. I'm your host, Judo Sloth. Let's begin by explaining, in general, the AI of the ground and air troops, and then we will go over each of the troops that have a unique AI. As ever, if you are reviewing this video, I have video chapters, so you can skip ahead to whichever section you wish. Let's begin with ground troops. I've created this little mock-up because it nicely demonstrates where the troops will actually hit. You could think of this as a hitbox. Whether it's a melee troop or a ranged troop, this is where the impact to the building actually occurs. Most buildings have a 0.5 tile gap around the building itself. So you can think of the hitbox, where the troops will actually make impact, as being inside this gap. Essentially, it's the building itself. The thicker grass where the barbarian is standing indicates the 0.5 tile gap, and this is hugely important. I'll get to why in a moment. The main exception is the army camp, which actually has an entire tile gap. So again, this is indicated by the thicker grass, and it is very important. This is because ground troops, unlike air troops, which we will get to, cannot just fly over the top of a building. They need a pathway to get to their desired target. So I'm using a giant to demonstrate the point, but the 0.5 tile gap either side provides the single tile and the pathway to the air defense, since it can't just walk over the top of a building. If you are enjoying this video so far, I like to bring educational but entertaining Clash of Clans videos, so if that's the type of content you want to see, I would recommend subscribing and turning on the notification bell. This should be pretty obvious, but I do want to include everything in this video, have it a complete guide for you. The only exception to the 0.5 tile gap is the wall. Otherwise, what would be the point? Troops could just walk through the middle of it. Now that you understand how troops move through a base, let's get to the good stuff. How do troops choose which buildings they are going to attack? You may have heard of the rule of 3. This applies to all troops, no matter whether they are defense targeting, melee, range. It is essentially the closest 3 buildings that a troop could target, so defense targeting troops wouldn't take into account non-defensive buildings. But if you don't learn anything else from this video, please take away the rule of 3. So get ready, write it down. Rewatch this section of the video. The rule of 3 is probably the most important thing about troop AI. Real quick disclaimer, before we go too far into this, it's actually not a hard and fast rule of 3 anymore in the Winter 2020 update. There were small AI tweaks whereby a troop can take into account a 4th building if the 3 closest ones are difficult to get to. Let's say they're behind a wall, and the 4th is very close in distance, but it's easier. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it still is the case for the majority of situations. So let's explain the rule of 3. So whenever you place a troop, I am going to place the Barbarian King onto the torch. They will quickly calculate the 3 closest buildings that they could target. So for the Barbarian King, it would be the Dark Barracks, the Army Camp, and the Elixir Collector. Those are the 3 closest buildings that he could reach. He is not taking into account anything else. The rest of the base is ignored. Like I said, there's a slight disclaimer, but in general, only the closest 3 buildings are taken into account. Once those 3 buildings have been identified, there's a couple of other calculations that happen before the troop chooses which building it is going to attack. The first is that a rounded off square, let's call it, is drawn around the hitbox of the 3 buildings. The hitbox, not the building itself. That's why it was important to discuss the concept of a hitbox. Following that, all of the potential positions that the troop could go to in order to attack these hitboxes are calculated. I'm only going to demonstrate this on the army camp, but it is calculated for all of the 3 hitboxes. Remember we said the walls do not have the 0.5 tile gap, therefore the Barbarian King cannot attack from the upper right side, so that's not taken into the calculation. Once all of these attack positions have been calculated for the 3 different hitboxes on the 3 different buildings, an estimate has to take place on which one is going to be the best. Primarily, this is based on distance, point A to point B, but when calculating the best attack position, there's also other things that come into play, such as, is the attack position of that hitbox inside a wall or in a different compartment? Therefore, it might not be the best, even if it's the shortest distance. There's also a tiny bit of randomness here as well. Once the best attack position has been identified, so for the Barbarian King down by the torch, it is right here on the army camp, the troop needs to decide what is the optimal route to get to that attack position. It's pretty straightforward here for the Barbarian King, just walking in a straight line, but think about if the base was totally destroyed by a builder hut in the corner, the troop has to decide the optimal path. Does it go through the base or around the base? So after all of that, when the 3 buildings are identified, the potential attack positions, choosing the best one, the optimal route to it, your troop will then take this route and start attacking the desired hitbox when it is within range. This is because whether it's a melee troop, a ranged troop, the rule of 3 applies to all of them. Once this building is taken out, or the troop is forced to retarget, which I'll get to in a moment, the whole process starts again. And this is so important, and why I wanted to make this video for you, because it means you can better plan your attacks. If you know what your troop is going to do, and you can foresee that as they move through the base, then it's going to make you a better attacker. So once the building is destroyed, the king takes into account the 3 closest buildings, I would argue the Dark Barracks, the Air Defense, and the Elixir Collector, all of the attack positions, etc., and chooses where he's going to go. In this case, straight across to the Dark Barracks is the shortest and easiest route. Let's continue to watch the king as he moves through the base in this manner. It should be pretty easy for you to identify where he is going to go next based on what I have told you. Granted, this is an easy example, but it should be helpful with attacking in general, particularly war attacks, when you can plan exactly where you are going to place your troops. And it should highlight the importance of the angle that you place troops to a building as well. It's not necessarily considering the funnel and just taking down X a building. You have to consider the different attack positions and how you are going to force your troop to angle themselves to a specific building. I mentioned sometimes that troops are redirected. If you are using a troop that is not defense targeting and it can fight back, it might target skeleton traps in this example, enemy clan castle troops, enemy heroes. Once the target is taken down, the enemy troop, your troop recalculates, so it might not go back to the building it was attacking because a new target might be more desirable based on where the troop is now. Exactly the same principle occurs for ranged troops, but it can be more difficult. Let me explain. The Archer Queen is able to shoot from a distance to the hitbox of the army camp. But once it is taken down, she does not go to the Dark Barracks like the king did. Despite the 3 closest buildings to the Archer Queen being the same as where the king was, she is going to be able to take just a couple of steps to the right in order to get in firing range of the Elixir Collector. So that is exactly what she is going to do. Once the Elixir Collector goes down and the next 3 buildings are taken into account, again the Dark Barracks, the Air Defense, and the next Elixir Collector, she only has to take a couple of steps to the left to get in firing range of the Air Defense. So the principles are exactly the same, but due to the range, it can be harder to calculate yourself. Air troops work different to ground troops, and the rule of 3 doesn't really apply. I'm going to demonstrate this with dragons, but it's applicable to any air troops, just like what I just explained was applicable to any ground troops, with the disclaimer that at the end of the video, I will go over the troops that have a unique AI. So when the dragon is deployed, it doesn't need to take into account whether the building is inside a compartment, is it behind a wall? It can fly over that. So distance is the only thing taken into account. For that reason, it doesn't need to take into account 3 buildings and calculate the most optimal one to get to. It picks the closest and flies to it. But remember we said there was a little bit of randomness to that ground calculation? Well, the air troops are no different. The air troops basically draw a circle around the desired target rather than a rounded square as we called it with the ground troops, and the air troops will randomly pick a position on this circle and fly to it. It doesn't have to be the closest attack position as with the ground troops. Sometimes the dragons will actually cross over each other and pick a different random position. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to attack from the back of the defense, but on the frontal side of the expo, it just picks a spot here and flies to it. Let's take a look at that as we deploy more dragons. Notice how the dragon we deployed further south still picks the closest target as the expo, but it crossed over the flight path of the initial dragon and they attacked from different positions. So they chose the same target, but randomly picked a different attack spot. As with the ground troops, once their target is destroyed, the calculation happens again, and they will move to the closest building and a random spot on it. Now that you know generally how the AI of ground and air troops work, let's go over all of the troops that have a unique AI. Wall breakers have a unique AI and can be quite difficult to understand. By the way, this entire video was difficult to put in a simple format, so if anything doesn't make sense, please let me know in the comments. I'll try and help out. And I also reached out to the Clash of Clans team to clarify that what I was going to say was correct and make sure to bring the best possible video for you. So thank you to the Clash of Clans team who gave me a ton of information and for your continued support. But for the wall breaker, they will take into account more than 3 buildings, so long as the buildings are close enough in distance, and once it has calculated its optimal path to that building, if a wall is en route, it will attack that wall. So wall breakers do not target walls, they target buildings and attack walls en route to the building. That is why, let's say, the compartment to the left, the wall breakers did not go for. They wanted to go for the building and attack the wall en route. I hope that made sense. Whilst I could have mentioned this earlier on with the ground section, I didn't want to overcomplicate things, but just know that jumping units such as hog riders, headhunters, the royal champion, as well as miners have a totally different calculation when they are choosing their optimal target. Jumping units only very slightly take into account if a building is behind a wall, because they can jump over it. Miners do not even take it into account at all, because they can just burrow underneath. We might as well discuss 2 of the troops at the same time, the healers and the Grand Warden. Well, a hero and a troop. The Grand Warden first, he works exactly the same as the ground section we discussed, often used to set a funnel. If you do want to know about funneling, I will link you across to my funneling explained video at the end of this one. I went in great depth with that, but the Grand Warden follows the same principles unless troops are deployed in his radius, when he then switches to support mode. Each troop has its own unique warden weight, and this for the most part is the same as the housing space for the troop. There's only the hound and the golem, which is a little bit different because you rarely want your Grand Warden to follow those troops. Essentially, he will follow the largest amount of warden weight. So that is why your Grand Warden will follow a stack of balloons and leave minions behind. You kind of want him to do that. The healers have a unique AI in the sense that they want to maximize the healing housing space density. So they will try and heal the biggest pack of troops that are taking damage whilst having minimal movement. So they won't be constantly retargeting and switching all over the place. They want to move around as little as possible, but heal the maximum amount of troops. The Valkyrie. I will try my best to explain this. think back to the start of the video where we talked about hitboxes, the one tile gap, and also in the ground section where I talked about the attack positions on the hitboxes. So the Valkyries can run into the middle in that one tile gap and try to maximize their whirlwind power by attacking multiple buildings and multiple hitboxes. But they will not run past a building in order to do this. So if you deploy them in front of a building, they will just go to that single building. However, if you deploy them slightly to the side of the building, they will try and run in between both of them to maximize the effectiveness. This is why, if you are doing a mass Valkyrie attack, the funnel has to be set perfectly. Because whilst it's a little bit easier to predict troop pathing on the outside of the base when you first deploy them, remember the calculations we are talking about happen every single time their current target is taken down and they retarget. So it gets increasingly difficult to predict where they are going to go the deeper they go into the base. The Electro Dragon will choose its initial target the same as any other air troop, but if its chain lightning could potentially go in two different directions, it will always chain to the building with the highest hit points. This means that you should be able to predict a little bit better which way the chain is going to go and which potential buildings you can take out. We also need to talk about the Royal Champion Seeking Shield because it will move from defense to defense and it considers distance from one to the other. But the important thing is the hitboxes that we talked about. So it does not hit the center of a defense, it hits the hitbox and will move to the next nearest target. It will continue to do this so you can alter where the shield will go based on the angle you deploy your Royal Champion. I want to clarify that there is no difference in the AI of the builder base and the home village. So everything I have discussed, you can apply to the builder base. Like I said, I reached out to the Clash team to make sure this video was the best it possibly could be for the community, and I thank them so much for the help. But there are a few things that can make the builder base AI appear different. Firstly, the guard post troops act differently than clan castle troops, so they might trigger your troops in different ways. The battle machine has the longest range of any melee troop, 1.25 tiles to be precise, so he is going to act differently if you were to compare him with the Barbarian King, for example, because they have different ranges. Also, the builder base often has a lot of open wall compartments, and this impacts the decision making of troops with the rule of 3. So I really hope this video has helped you. If you do want to see my funneling explained video, I have it linked on your screen alongside the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.